So without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker for the night, Miss Sherrie Marchi. Did I get the last name right? Marchi. See, I should have checked beforehand. Thank you. So a little bit about Sherrie. Sherrie is a certified professional coactive coach with an insatiable appetite for learning, if not understanding the human condition. She divides her work time between her private practice in Palatine, Illinois, and Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota, where she partners leadership training to Indigenous youth. What? Sherrie has been married for 21 years and is the mother of 2 teenage sons, Nolan and James. Her interests are her family, nature, art, and life school. Ladies and gentlemen, she is new to our stage, and I'm sure a voice to be remembered. Please help me welcome Sherrie.
Training wheels because I didn't have a real long time to prepare for this, so I'm going to be taking my attention off you for a brief moment sometimes to check in. I'll be looking at my notes here just to make sure that I stay on task so that I don't get intimidated by the sign lady. I just met last week, and what a cool lady she is, and I'm really excited to be here. This is so cool. I had no idea that this place was here. I live 5 minutes away. My son would totally dig it. He's a musician. This is so cool. Anyway, so my story tonight is about a mask. So I want to tell you guys a story about when I was wearing a mask and I didn't know that I was wearing a mask. So this time of the year is just full of spooky Halloween, autumn, and it's especially scary because we have an election coming up. And that reminds me of how we all want to choose the candidate who most closely aligns with our values, who will represent our values, right? And so I've always kind of thought of myself as a champion for my values, an activist, if you will.
Stand a little closer to the mic. Thank you.
An activist. I used to be rabid, and that's the part I want to tell you about, is when I was rabid and I was wearing the mask and I didn't know. So I don't want to tell you what side of the fence I'm on politically, but and I'm sure you won't be able to tell from my very subtle description here. So I have ever since I was a little girl, I've always thought about, I've had a passion for taking care of the earth and for equality, and I've had like a trigger around injustice. When certain groups are discriminated against, any group, it really twalks me. It makes me so angry, because who is anyone to belittle, to make someone else less important? And so I'm reminded of how passionate I was about animals, and how passionate I was about the indigenous people, and how no one knows their story about the boarding schools and yada, yada, yada. And I really wanted to, I really took a huge leap for the animals. And I wanted to help them because they have no voice that we can understand. And I did that for a really long time, and it made me feel powerful, and it made me feel important, and it made me feel potent. And then I remembered a time when it was a little bit later in my adult life when I discovered the plight of the Native people, and how nobody knows their story, and they're marginalized, but they're on these reservations, and they're away from where we all can see them and where we know about them, so no one knows. No one knows about the suffering, about the Holocaust that took place right here in our country, and over 100 million people were were annihilated. And I feel so, I don't know where my attraction to that whole culture comes from, but I knew that those people needed me. They needed me to come to their reservation, and I was going to change the world, and I was going to change their life, and I was going to champion them and tell their story. And when I got there, they didn't give a shit. They didn't stop what they were doing because Sherrie Markey showed up. And I was like, what? And so I realized, wow, well, not everybody is, I'm not important in everyone's mind like I am in my own. Whoa. And then I realized that not only was I not important to them, but I was being perceived as arrogant when I went there and I said, I'm here to help you poor broken Indian people, now I'm here. Rest easy, man. It was arrogant. And I wasn't able to see that because I wanted to help. I wanted to be important. Well, I want to put that on hold for just a minute, that whole story. So when I was born to siblings who were 10, 11, and 16 years older than I was. And my parents were 40 plus, and they were very, very tired. And they didn't have anything left. They were like that balloon that goes, there was nothing left. And so my siblings were my lifeline. When I was 2, my eldest sibling went off to college, and then the other 2, they discovered their pheromones, and they discovered dating, and after about 5 years, I was doted upon, I was the center of the universe, and then all of a sudden, they dropped me like a hot potato. And I didn't realize until I was much older that I perceived that as rejection and abandonment and unworthiness. And so I went through my adult life thinking, I need to compensate. I need to do something. And it made me feel powerful. I needed to do something that made me feel powerful. Well, of course, it was natural that when I became an adult and I realized that I could do something for someone else, that I could feel important, I was wearing that mask, and then I realized that I wasn't as important to everyone else, and I realized what the real reason underneath what I was doing was. It wasn't for altruism, it was to meet my own needs, to make myself feel worthy and important. And it was a really hard day when I made that realization, but because I've made that realization, it's brought me back to wholeness that I lost as a young person. And so my invitation to you all tonight is to remember, or to examine, when you feel really triggered, really passionate about something, there's probably something underneath that. What mask are you wearing?
Sherrie, wow. Just wow. I think you framed it beautifully up front when you talked about this election season. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm going to put myself out there and say, I have felt really tense and really impassioned in ways that I am not necessarily proud of. I have felt depths of anger and fear that I don't enjoy. And that line about realizing that there's something underneath that that can restore wholeness, and having the opportunity to explore that is so powerful and is so empowering for the fact that that's something we can do, that we are not powerless.
Every one of us.
Every single one of us. Beautiful. Thank you for that reminder. Can we, another round of applause, please?